name is Justin Lawson, and in this video I'm going to show you how I made my track Get Wrecked. Okay, so let's get started. I'm going to start with the drums and percussion and just everything to do with the beat and stuff like that. So before I start, I just want to say what the inspiration for this track was. And I don't really listen to a lot of techno, but I went on a bit of a techno, how could you say, inspirational trip, just trying to see. There's something about techno that sort of amazes me, that the fact that people just go crazy over just a kick and bass line, and I sort of wanted to put that into this track. I wanted to just play around with that really low end sub, and I mean the kick that I used isn't like a techno kick. I sort of kept it more housey, but I wanted it to drop kind of like a techno track. I mean, I think I was watching maybe a Carl Cox set, and it just sort of inspired me to make this style of music, which I've tried to sort of stitch it with my kind of style of house, which is more, I don't know, I can't really describe what my style is, but I like to use percussion behind my drums. I just feel like it just gives it a bit more rhythm. So if you want to get this track, there will be a link in the description where you can buy it on Beatport or just stream it on Spotify to have a good listen of the track. But let's start with the drums. So if I just mute everything that isn't the drums, so let's just get rid of all these samples, and as you can see, I've bounced out quite a bit of this project because my computer is just it's just not very fast, or ain't got a lot of CPU, so I just sort of make do with what I've got at the minute. And I'll get into that a bit more with the bass line, where I have resampled, which is a really cool technique, but I'll go into that in a bit. So if I just show you the basics of this track, which is the drums, and let's just go through what kick I've used, and let's just go through some of the processing that I've used in this track. So with the kick, simple kick. I don't think I did a lot to it really. Just a single EQ there with a little boost, 100 Hertz, just so it pokes through the mix a bit more. Plus, there is a reason why I've done that, and it's to do with the bass line. And just a small cut here in the low mids, just so I can make a bit more room, which I'll show you with the bass line again. Because there was a lot of clashing going on, a lot of frequencies sort of phasing each other out on this track, and I seem to have a bit of a problem there. So fundamentals of this of the kick and sub, you just have to start cutting some frequencies just so they can sort of work together. You have to sort of play around and just make sure you want the certain harmonics of the bass line and the kick, which ones you want to come through. So I've also boosted it in the highs just to give that little, you probably can't even hear it, but it does make a bit of a difference when you want the kick to just poke through a little bit on the right at the start on the attack. So the kick's just simple. I think this other one here, yeah, I just used this is just filtering, and I think I've used that here, just cut it slightly here, and then high passed it here. Nothing special really. Let's go on to, so this here would be the hi-hats. And I didn't really change it much there, but this is a sample which I've used from the Kashmir, which is an old sample pack now, but this is one that I've just kept forever because the Kashmir sample packs are probably one of the best sample packs I've ever used. They just have everything in it. Everything you need to make a track you can get out of these Kashmir packs. Whether you slice things or just sample certain sections of a bass line, Kashmir packs are the best. Okay, so let's move on to, I think I've used, let's have a look. Oh yeah, I've actually done something interesting here. So I experimented with loop lengths, and I really wanted the open hi-hat to be, I didn't want it to be repetitive on every bar. So I'll show you what I've done, and this is just a simple offbeat open hi-hat, which goes well with the percussion, with the other hi-hat. Nothing special there. And I've just had, what I've done here, actually, I'll show you. I've deliberately done this like this. So look what I've done here. I've done it in a 3-bar loop. And these 2 open hi-hats are right at the start. So when I put it into the mix here, this loop here and this loop here are totally different, which just adds a bit of randomness, and that's the same throughout the whole track. So I've done it in 3-bar loops just so I just wanted a bit more randomness in there. So it's very minor, but it does sort of break up the track a little bit more. Moving on to the next part. So this is where the percussion really kicks in with this sample. If I play the whole sample, which is just a Norman Cook sample from one of his sample packs, and I'll just cut that up to make this, and this loop length, I think I've made this 8 bars. Well, here it looks like it's just a normal 1 bar. I know, but I've done it over 16. Yeah, so I've done a 16-bar loop on this, so that just makes that section, and then it repeats again. So let me just play that for you. So it's kind of just syncopated with the hi-hats really, until it hits this last one. And then the open hi-hats come in for the next 16 bars. Okay, so that is the sort of the high end. Let's see what I've done here. So this is the clap. I think I used a clap, or did I use a snare? Snare. And I've used this sound. So a lower frequency clap layered on top of that one just gives it a bit more volume. And then I've got this sound, which is a tom. And it all goes together nicely to create this beautiful rhythm. Simple. If I just show you my drum processing, so what I like to do is I do all my widening here in these tracks slots, get them all together. I do on and off, I like to keep them nicely colour coded. I think I've done well on this one, but what I do is I'll route them all to this mixer channel here. So I've got a wow filter on there, which is adding a little bit of, I think it's distortion on that, a little bit of resonance, and then the blood overdrive the colour just boosted up a little bit, and that really sort of accentuates the high end on it. A bit more distortion on there again. And then compression, which is just standard compression. I think I just use this to just sit it better in the mix. So it was a lot louder originally, and I just use the compressor just to squash everything together, and then bring down the volume of the whole percussion and drums and stuff, and then it will just sit in the mix a lot better. And then I think, yeah, it's just a filter, and then I use this, which is basically just a reverb, just to wash it out in certain sections. So you just turn the dry all the way down, so you've just got a full wet signal, and then you can just automate it on the mix there, and that will just sort of push your drums back and then back forward again into the mix. Just make it just sort of fade them in and out instead of using a filter. It sounds good with a reverb, so it just sort of distances itself and then comes back in again. Let me try and find an example where I've done that. And the only time I've actually done that in this track is on the break section, so you can hear it here, sort of just washing away. That's it. That's it for the drums, really. I didn't really do a lot. As you can see, it is just a really simple track, and I've used, for me, this is not a lot of automation, and I normally automate quite a bit on my tracks, but this one isn't so much. Okay, so let's move on to the bass line and synthesizers next. Okay, so before I start, and you've made it this far, please support me by either streaming this track, even better, going and buy it, or just subscribe and like this video. So it would really help me out. I upload all the time, and it'd be great if you could just join this community and help me out and listen to my music most of all. And hopefully this is like really helpful for you if you are a producer or you're just starting to make music. It's always good to look at other people's projects and just take something away from that. Let's move on to the bass line. So this is what I was saying earlier in the video. So if I play the bass line, let's take the side chain off and the kick, and then just play ultimately what the bass line is throughout the track. I didn't really do a lot of automation or changes on this, just filtering. So let's play this bass line, which is really simple. In fact, I'll play the last 4 bars because all of it is just looped anyway. So I'll play this for you. So I can't remember how I made this bass, but or this sub/bass line. I think I may have used a sample, and then I've cut it up, and then I've repitched it, and then I may have added some compression, some distortion. No, not distortion, some saturation to it, just to give it. Just to change it a little bit so it doesn't sound exactly the same as where I got it from. But the reason it is how it is because I've done all that processing, and then that has just totally obliterated my CPU. So what I done on this, and what I normally do on most of my tracks now, is bounce it down and then just use that sample in the track, and this avoids maybe one of the worst things that I do all the time, and a lot of other people do, and that is tweaking. I think having that limitation of not being able to tweak and then just use what you've got in front of you is a real sort of weight off my shoulders, because you can make a whole track and then completely change it at the end, and then wonder why you done that. So bouncing it down and then just putting it straight into your project, and then just make the track around that, and that will just sort of help out your creative process a lot easier. It will just make it easier. Well, for me it does anyway, because it eliminates that problem of tweaking all the time, which is such like a addictive thing to do, because it's never the best as you want it. So that's how I made that bass line. I just pretty much resampled a bass line that I must have found in a sample pack from a while ago, because I remember this project, I was just going through my through like my idea folder, listening. Oh, okay, this sounds good. This would sound good in like a techno inspired track. So that's what it is. So let me just play it again, and then introduce the kick. Ready? Let me just loop that and then show you the EQ stuff that I was talking about earlier. Right, so if I just open up, so with the kick, if I remember rightly, yeah, I boosted on 100 hertz. So remember that, I boosted it on 100 hertz, and then on the bass line, I believe, oh, I've actually got it turned off, but on the 100 hertz, I don't know why I turned that off, but anyway, this is what I normally do. If my sub is such like a pronounced thing in the track, and you really want your kick to sort of just cut through where you want it, I normally do a little cue on the kick, boost that by 3 dB, and then let me just stop playing that, and then do a little cue again on the bass line, and then cut that by 3 dB, and that should put the kick where it should be with the bass line. So it should just poke through every time. So what I have used on the bass is my favourite plugin for bass lines, and that is FabFilter Saturn. And I just use the gentle saturation, which is really cool because you can just boost these to get it to sound nice. And when you boost the low end on this, it sounds perfect. You can also compress it, and then the drive, this is where you sort of mix in the saturation, and where it is just right. Maybe if I turn that off and then I'll show you what it sounds like. So if I turn that off, and then back on, it just really accentuates that sort of low end rumble, which sounds really nice, especially in techno tracks. See that rumble right on the low end is sort of like not key for techno, but you hear it a lot if you listen to a lot of like Amelie Lenz tracks. You'll hear it in that, and also Charlotte DeWitt. Her tracks are, you can really hear that low end sub, which sounds quite nice. Okay, so let's move on to synths. Let me just mute them, get rid of that, and I used what was this one? I think it was Repro 1. Yeah. So this is a really cool synthesizer. This is basically like a bit of hardware, really, but it's so simple. It has 2 oscillators. I think it has like 3 different shapes, and that's it. And it is like pretty much bare bones. And I really like the oh, it is the drench. The reverb on it sounds really nice. But I think I was just looking for something different in terms of plugins, and this one was, I wanted to find something that's as close to hardware as possible. And I've read a lot of sort of stuff on Reddit, and Repro 1 was pretty good when I tried the trial. And Yuhi make brilliant plugins anyway. I think the Diva, I think that was the one I was about to buy, but I looked at this one and thought, You can also do this with it, which is the tweak page, and you can go into different settings, and it looks cool. That's probably why I bought it. So I think I did use a preset for this one, and I used the sequencer, and this is pretty much it. I took it down to 2 steps, and I kept it within the octave. So it's just going -12, 36. Changed the velocity slightly, and on the second note, the 36, it's more of a slide. So let's just play that. Let's play that. Let me stick it here. Let me play that again. Really simple. Nothing special there. No trickery or anything like that. As you can see, this plugin is very CPU intensive. I've got OBS running at the same time, so it doesn't really like it. And the processing on that, as you can hear, it's all I've done is obviously sidechain it, of course. I didn't even EQ it. Oh, I have actually. I've just cut some of the lows there. So it's a nice little cut on the end there. Use this EQ as the filter, and then the Panamatic just to sweep it left to right. Just so I felt like my mix was a little bit sort of static. There wasn't a lot of movement in the track. So this just, if you stick that on your synthesizer, maybe a break synth or something, sweeping left to right, sound brilliant. It just gives it that little bit of movement while everything is just sort of like in its place, especially with the drums. So that's that synth. Oh yeah, and there's this break synth here, which goes like this. So this is the Repro 5, which you get with Repro 1. When you buy Repro 1 is a mono synth, and then Repro 5 is a polysynth, so you can play obviously different voices, and you can layer stuff. I've kept this at 1 voice because when you start adding voices and you haven't got a very powerful computer, it is going to clip hard. So I kept this at 1 voice, but this has some really cool presets in there. It's exactly the same minus the sequencer. So, but obviously minus the sequencer, but you can also make some pretty crazy super saws with this, and it sounds very analog. And not they are sounding very similar nowadays, but this I wanted to add a bit of that analog stuff instead of just using Serum all the time. This is a great this plugin, and Repro 1 is also a great plugin. You buy them together, so you buy Repro 1, you get Repro 5 with it, which great for break synths. Repro 1 is also very good for bass lines. And that's pretty much it for the synths. I think I've used 1, 2, and then I just resampled for the bass line. So once again, another very simple track. What should I go on to next? I'm going to go on to what samples I use, and then I'll finish up after that. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to go over the arrangement and the samples that I've used in this track. So let me just go through all the samples that I've used in this track. I can't remember what packs I got these from, but I think this one's called Zaire, and this one goes like this, which sounds cool. And then for this break, with a bit of reverb, sounds cool. I really like that sample. As soon as I heard that, I How does the full thing go? Yeah, the full thing is this. Which is quite dark, which fits perfectly with this track, Get Wrecked. So I don't know what that sound is, but it's maybe just a saw or something like that. Alright, yeah, let's go into the vocals section, which is samples, of course. And here is the vocal. Building over time, which is the volume automation here. And then it goes on to the break.
Check it out, y'all.
Bit of delay.
Get wrecked.
And then they're probably, probably like Vengeance. Yeah, Vengeance feels. I mean, that's like the oldest sample pack that I've got. I think that was the very first sample pack that I ever bought when I first started music, which is the Vengeance 4, I think. And I still use it now. And that was like 6 or 7 years ago. Yeah, so that's pretty cool. And I just mixed it up with the same samples of the vocals for this this section. Which goes nicely with the synth. I won't play them at the same time because it's going to buffer. But that is that, and it same breakdown.
Check it out, y'all.
And again, these samples here, so these are just standard, and I think, yeah, if I just play them for you as I go along. Simple, and it's just drum fills basically. Irrelevant. Yeah, what about this one? Yeah, I mean, what I like to do is I'll make the whole track and make it sound good without any of these first. So I'll go through and just basically the project will look like that, but minus all of that underneath it. And then on the very last iteration, I'll just I like to call it just like gluing a track together. But you don't have to. I mean, I'm slowly not doing that anymore. But I don't know, some sweeps and crashes just make it sound good sometimes, and just just join certain sections together. Like just a little bit better, just a little bit of a sweep or whatever. So the basic arrangement of this track, I'm sort of moving into it's an 8-minute track, so it is pretty long. And I mean, at the start of my music making journey, as you can call it, I couldn't make a track no longer than 2.5 minutes, 3 minutes, and now I'm making 8-minute tracks. And what I've done is basically obviously listen to a lot of music and then just sort of, how do they do that? Why, like, how can I get my tracks as long as that? It always seems so hard at the beginning to do that, because you always think that you need all these big crashes and every 8 bars, and something changes every 8 bars. But if you want to make this style of music like 8 minutes long, 6 minutes long, just change your 8-bar loops to 16-bar loops, and then have something, maybe just even just a double kick or a double snare in the middle, and that just sort of resets it again. And if it's flowing and it sounds good, like, it doesn't matter. It just play it again. So the intro is, till it drops, 2 minutes, which is great for DJs. But I mean, if I was to tell myself that earlier on in my career, I would think, what? How can you make a 2-minute intro? But it all sort of works into the track because it's 8 minutes long, so it's relative. And that is the track. So I've pretty much just let you see all the project, see how I made it, see how simple it is, and please go out and buy it, stream it, do whatever, message me, write something in the comments, like, subscribe obviously, and I'll see you for the next video.